and we have read all of Hebrews. If you've been in worship every Sunday this summer, which I think somebody has, I couldn't say who, but I think somebody has. I know I wasn't because I missed a week when I went to Mount Hermon. But you have heard the whole book of Hebrews. So you've read one of the 66 books in the New Testament. You've heard it front to back. And we are so glad to have done that together. Wanted just to kind of have some closing thoughts. We did answer all the questions in worship, so I have no other questions. A reminder, though, that we will continue doing questions. So I'm going to end and have a little space after the sermon for people to send questions in, and then I will answer them in the midweek YouTube video so that we continue this like dialogue back and forth is my goal, and to enjoy being together. So, Book of Hebrews, how do we summarize it? First thing is, wanted to remind you that I operate under the assumption that the book of Hebrews was intended to be spoken as a written sermon and to be preached. So it reads like something that is better taken in through the ears, taken in as a live presentation than something simply done on the page. I think stuff like Hebrews 11, the Hall of Faith, those are places where preached, oof, so powerful. On the page, it almost feels a little bit like, yeah, we get it. Okay, you're continuing on down that point. But you know how preachers build momentum and build energy. You can feel it come off the page. The times where he says, it's written somewhere, I love those. But they're such preaching passages, right? Where you're reminded of a certain passage and you want to quote it, but you don't exactly know where it's written. So it's written somewhere. So it's preached. Do we know the author of Hebrews? No, we don't. Very commonly associated with Paul. Part of this comes out of today, Hebrews chapter 13, where he mentions Timothy. Timothy is Paul's buddy. Timothy is the man who Paul mentors. So there's some connection somehow to Paul in there. There's sometimes Apollos, there's Priscilla. There are different people who are thought to have written the book of Hebrews, and it's a fascinating idea, but none of us know who wrote it. Written to the Hebrews, written to people who are persecuted, probably persecuted because they've left the Jewish religion, have become a Christian, and that was a big deal. That was leaving your family, leaving the people who were before you, leaving the people who cared for you, and in a lot of ways, you would probably end up an outcast, not taken care of, not seen, not even could have been acted like you were dead by your grandparents, by your parents. So this would be a huge thing, and there would be a large cultural draw to come back into the Jewish faith, to go back. It's not worth it. Don't stay. Come on back, right? Okay. That would be the draw. I think that the author of Hebrews is encouraging those who have been there to say, yes, there are wonderful, great things about the place from where we've came. It was good. It was helpful. It allowed us to have an understanding of our relationship with God, although a shadow of that understanding, a tent curtain in the relationship with God. God a little bit at a distance. He's here, but he's not quite in the room. That kind of idea. And it was good, and we are so glad it was there. And yes, thank you for the Old Testament. Thank you for the sacrifices. Thank you for the tabernacle. Thank you for the priests. All of those things were good, but there's something better, right? That word better. Not that that was bad, not that that was evil, not that it was horrible, but there's something better. And the better is the word that we're hearing over and over and over again from the author of Hebrews, from the speaker, the writer of Hebrews. Let me tell you about the better way. The better way is Jesus. The better way is this life of faith, this life of knowing that God has you, He's for you, He's with you, He's in you, He's all of those things. That's the better. And we have access to that. We have the high priest who not only goes into a temple and has to sacrifice for his sin and for the sin of the people, but he walks in and tears that curtain down because he doesn't have to worry about his own sin. So he then becomes a better mediator, and he's without sin, and he is able to represent God because he is God, while also knowing what it's like for us. So let us approach the throne of Christ boldly and with confidence. Why? Because he was like us in every way, yet without sin. This is the kind of high priest we have. If you could choose between a high priest who can only do sacrifices that make right the space where God can dwell, but still God is behind this curtain, or you can have a high priest who tears down the curtain, who knows what it's like to be a human, knows what it's like to struggle, knows what it's like to be scared, knows what it's like to not have friends, knows what it's like to be abandoned. You hear the preaching thing, right? And this and that and that. The Hall of Faith here, there, there. Wouldn't you want him as your high priest? Wouldn't you want him to be the one who you're in a relationship with? This is the better. And if this is better, and if you really understand how good it is and how much better it is, why would you ever go back? Why would you ever go back to living under the law? The illustration I used in the sermon is one I want. There's two I want you to keep in mind. The first is that I think it is entirely appropriate to say that the law is a babysitter. The law was the guardian until mom and dad showed up. And once mom and dad showed up, the law could go home. And we don't need it anymore because Jesus is here. The real one who gives us real relationship, establishes real life with us, is here. And when the new thing comes, when I got my iPhone, I don't remember what this is, a 14, 13, I think it's a 14. Oof. When I got this phone, I set aside my old phone and I don't pick it up anymore. Why? This one's better. It has better processing speed. It has a better camera. It does things the other phone couldn't do. This one is better. So my old one goes in the drawer, not to be used again. This is the better covenant. God has the better covenant. So put the old away. And once you understand it's better, then you hear things like Hebrews chapter 13. Let mutual love continue. Do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for by doing so some have entertained angels without knowing it. This is the better, over and over and over again. Okay? So that kind of encouragement, once you come into the house, once you come into this new covenant and this new way, why would you ever go back? We have a God who knows us, who mediates for us, who has torn down the curtain, who is the once and for all sacrifice, who offers us faith and gives us life. This is the better. Welcome to the better. Come in and stay. Do you hear it? This is, I think, if we had to summarize Hebrews, that would be the way that I would do it. Let me tell you about the better. Why would you ever go back? Okay, so we're going into our Asking for a Friend series starting tomorrow, Sunday, and I would love to see you there. Again, we will publish the questions so that you can invite your friends. That's the goal. You see the questions, you know the questions you put in, and we would love for you to invite your friends. So, yep, that's happening this Sunday. We'll still do the questions on YouTube, but we will not answer them in church. Looking forward to seeing you guys. Hopefully you had a great summer, great Labor Day. See you on Sunday.